Daryl slid the envelope across the desk like he was tipping a waiter. 150, he said. Little thank you bonus. You've been steady. Not even a pause. Not even eye contact. Just steady. I looked at the envelope. It felt like a dare. I'd spent 12 months rebuilding our entire inventory tracking system from the ground up. Barcodes, categories, vendor integrations, the whole thing. Nights and weekends buried in spreadsheets and bug fixes. No overtime, no complaints. Just doing the damn job. And now, 150 bucks. Regional manager's big on energy, he added, leaning back. We're shifting focus. Enthusiasm matters more than systems. You know, he gave me that patronizing little nod, the one that meant, you're the past. I knew that tone. I'd been hearing it ever since Daryl started hiring these fresh-faced kids who smiled all the time, but couldn't scan a gallon of coolant without crashing a terminal. You've got stability, he said, but no sparkle. Quick note, before we keep going, share which city or country you're watching from. I didn't flinch. Just tucked the envelope in my back pocket and stood up. That all? I asked. Daryl shrugged. Keep up the good work. I walked out without a word, past the new guy who jammed the label printer yesterday, past the girl who thought 10W30 was a tire size, past the racks I'd personally reorganized for maximum turnover. Back at my workstation, I sat down, took a deep breath, and opened the admin panel. The system was mine. Technically, officially, I'd filed every major component under my employee credentials. Company protocol required that custom operational tools be tagged with creator rights, especially if they impacted real-time functions. I followed every rule. They didn't even know what the rules were. I clicked through 3 levels of access, then 2 more, one final login. And just like that, I locked down the entire backend. I didn't crash it. I didn't sabotage a damn thing. I just did what the policy said, flagged the system as sensitive, restricted modifications to authorized personnel only, and archived the framework with encryption. All perfectly by the book. Nobody noticed. They were too busy bouncing a rubber stress ball and clapping for team hustle. I opened a blank document and typed out a single sentence. If you're not Daryl, ask me about this. Then I started writing my notice. I finished typing the sentence, saved the file, and opened a new document. This one started with, to whom it may concern, effective 2 weeks from today. That was it. No drama, no explanation, just facts. I printed it out and walked straight to Daryl's office. He had one of those foam footballs in his hand, tossing it up and catching it like he was the cool camp counselor. I slid the paper across his desk and turned to leave. He barely glanced at it. Don't make decisions when you're emotional, he said. I paused, hand on the doorframe. Not emotional, I said. Just done. He gave me a half smile like I was throwing a tantrum over the bonus. Then he said, Okay, I'll have Tyler shadow you. He's got good vibes. Tyler was the kid who once called brake fluid that clear goop. Daryl had him stocking spark plugs by size instead of part number. Good vibes. That's what mattered now. Back at my desk, I closed every open tab and pulled up the core of the system I'd built. I archived everything. Reorder logic, shelf mapping, auto alerts for low inventory, vendor sync, all of it. One click, encrypted. Then I flagged it under my employee credentials, labeled Sensitive Operational Tool, as outlined in company documentation, page 16, section 8.2. That policy, buried so deep in the employee manual no one ever read it. But I had, twice. Access now required creator approval for any changes or relaunches. Tyler stood behind me holding a highlighter like it was a wand. So this is the scanner system, right? I didn't even turn around. Sure is. The rest of the day, I boxed up my stuff. Notebooks, a couple pens, the mug I liked. I slid open my bottom drawer and pulled out the blue binder I'd been keeping for months. Everything was in there. Every process, diagram, troubleshooting path, barcode ID map, shelf sequence, reorder chart. 58 pages. I stuck it in a padded envelope, taped it shut, and wrote across the front in thick black Sharpie. If you're not Daryl, ask me about this. Then I slid it back into the drawer and locked it. Next morning, I left the key taped under the drawer handle. Obvious, but not stupid. Nobody said a word about my notice. Not a manager, not a coworker, not Daryl. They just kept throwing around words like hustle and team energy while scanning crushed barcodes and guessing stock levels off the top of their heads. One of the new girls, Jenna, I think, came by with a cupcake. "We're doing Friday wins," she chirped. "What's your win this week?" I looked at her, deadpan. "I'm leaving," she blinked, then just nodded and walked off like I told her I ran out of printer ink. The next few days, I did the bare minimum. Not out of spite, just because there wasn't a point anymore. Every time I tried to explain something to Tyler, he'd go, "Oh yeah, I got it," and then do it backward. He even asked if our labels could just be vibes-based. I didn't answer. The last day, I cleaned off my desktop, wiped my keyboard, and left the login screen open. Nobody came to say goodbye. As I walked out, Tyler was scanning a rack of oil filters with a barcode gun that wasn't even powered on. Daryl stood next to him, nodding like they were solving world hunger. They didn't ask about the binder, didn't ask what I'd archived, didn't ask what they needed to keep the whole thing from collapsing. I gave them the tools, gave them the chance. They chose vibes. So I walked out. No goodbye party, no fake smiles, just the door hitting me once on the way out. By Monday morning, I was sleeping in for the first time in months. No scanner beeping, no stupid pep talks, just coffee and silence. Then Jess texted me. "You seeing this mess?" Attached was a photo of Daryl standing in front of the tire rack like he was running for office. Brand new polo shirt, collar popped like he was 25. A giant poster behind him read, "Operation Rev Up, Hustle, Heart, Horsepower." I choked on my coffee. Jess followed up with, "New uniforms." Mandatory smiles. He made them chant it. Apparently, the staff had to say, "Rev it up," before team huddles. I don't even think Daryl knew what the hell that meant, just that it sounded fast and exciting, like a car commercial mashed with a youth group. And then came the kicker. He put Natalie in charge of the new inventory system. I stared at that text for a long second. Natalie was 22, fresh out of community college, and once asked me, with a completely straight face, if we charged oil-like phones. She used to giggle when the scanners beeped. Now she was running the whole rollout? Jess confirmed it over lunch that Friday. We met up at Charlie's Diner off Route 14. She looked exhausted. "They're calling it a new phase," she said, stabbing her grilled cheese. "Said your system was too process-heavy. Daryl said we needed something lighter, more intuitive." "More intuitive than auto-generated reorder logic?" I asked. Jess nodded. "He says Natalie's got fresh eyes. She's closer to the customer experience." I sat back. She once asked if a lug nut was vegan. Jess didn't laugh, just looked tired. They'd scrapped every part of my layout. The smart bin tags, gone. The barcode structure that cross-referenced shelf zone and product category, wiped. Instead, they rolled out color-coded stickers with smiley faces, actual smiley faces. Each bin got a sticker. Green for in stock, yellow for low, red for uh-oh, Jess said. Some of them had little thumbs-up drawings. No part numbers, no SKUS. Just vibes. I couldn't even be mad. It was so dumb it was almost impressive. They replaced the reorder spreadsheet with a whiteboard, Jess added. Natalie takes photos of it at the end of the day. Smart, I muttered, because dry erase markers are famously reliable. Jess sighed. And now, if something goes missing, Daryl says it's a communication gap, not a system flaw. I leaned back and looked out the diner window. Part of me thought, maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe Natalie's enthusiasm would carry them through. Then Jess said, she made a TikTok about the rollout, called herself the inventory influencer, said she's manifesting accuracy. That was it. I laughed, loud. Manifesting accuracy, I repeated. Yeah, screw documentation. Let's just pray the spark plugs sort themselves. Jess didn't smile. They're trying to force optimism down everyone's throat. But nothing works. Nothing scans right. Natalie keeps saying, we just need to adjust the energy. I shook my head. You can't chant your way through inventory errors. Jess looked down. She asked me yesterday if ATF and coolant were interchangeable. I couldn't even respond to that one. Back home, I sat down with another cup of coffee, pulled up my inbox, and started cleaning out old emails from work. One was still marked unread, a week-old automated report, final archive confirmation, all green. They couldn't fake what I built, but they'd sure try to dance on top of it with stickers and hashtags. So I did the only logical thing. I added Natalie's TikTok to a private bookmark folder titled For Future Lawsuits, just in case. 3 days after the TikTok, Jess texted, scanner froze mid-sale. Twice I sent back a question mark. She followed up. Natalie told QA to refresh the energy. QA rebooted all 6 terminals instead. Apparently, the scanners were locking up every time someone tried to process a mixed cart transaction. Multiple fluids, different categories. You know, what every single customer actually buys. Another text hit, reorder report just showed 0 stock across the board. And right under it, we are literally standing in front of full shelves. I didn't respond right away. Just let her vent. She needed it. Plus, I already knew what was coming. It was the slow collapse. The system they tried to fake was finally snapping. Then she sent a screenshot from the staff Facebook group. Natalie had posted a selfie with a coffee mug that said, "Messy but motivated," and wrote, "We're facing a few hiccups, but I believe in this team. Let's own our challenges and manifest solutions." Rev up, fam. The comments were a mess of fake positivity. "You got this, girl." "Keep slaying queen. We're vibing through it." Jess captioned the screenshot. "They're literally drowning and smiling." Meanwhile, Daryl doubled down. Started calling daily huddles where he'd say crap like, "We don't blame, we pivot." Said it so many times it became a joke. Jess said Tyler started calling him Pivot Daddy behind his back. Nobody actually pivoted, though. They just spun in circles. Then came the pricing errors. One guy came in to buy a single bottle of gear oil and somehow got charged for 12 cases of windshield washer fluid. Another customer scanned a gallon of coolant that rang up as a spark plug. Jess said the register screen started glitching out and displaying timestamps instead of product names. QA's official response? Try turning it off and back on. They even wiped a terminal clean and reinstalled the front-end software like it was 2009. Didn't fix a damn thing. The system wasn't broken, it just didn't exist anymore. Natalie and her sticker brigade had built an illusion, and now the lights were flickering. 2 weeks later, they attempted a full manual stock take. Jess said it was chaos. Half the bins were mislabeled. Some had 3 different sticker colors on them. Nobody could agree which color meant what. Then they opened aisle 4. Jess called me that night. "You're not going to believe this," she said. 2 aisles, completely full of expired product. How expired? Like, one case said 2017. One of the jugs had crystallized fluid in it. Jesus. Natalie cried, like, full sobbing. Had to sit in the break room. I didn't gloat. I just let her talk. She kept saying, "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I made a system." "Yeah," I muttered. "A system made of crayons and hope." Jess got quiet for a second. Then she said, "Daryl blamed legacy errors." I snorted. "Legacy?" He said it during the team huddle. Said the expired stuff must have been buried by old habits and outdated tracking. "Outdated?" I asked. "The stuff I flagged with expiration alerts?" "Yup." I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Of course he blamed me. Couldn't pin it on Natalie. She was still crying and posting sunrise quotes about resilience. Couldn't blame QA. They were barely involved. So naturally, it had to be the system he threw out. Jess finished with, "They've started saying we inherit the mess, but we own the fix." Like that makes any of it make sense. I shook my head. "Tell him to add that to the next sticker pack." She laughed, but it sounded tired. By the end of that week, they'd gone full analog. Whiteboards, sticky notes, handwritten counts. A temporary solution, Daryl told the staff. It wasn't temporary. It was a panic scramble. And underneath all of it, my system still sat, archived and locked. The only thing in that store built to last. It was a Thursday morning when Jess texted me again. "Carl's digging." Carl, assistant manager. Quiet, sharp, low drama. Wore the same steel-toe boots every day and actually knew how to lift a battery without slamming it into the scanner table. If anyone at that store still gave a damn, it was him. He asked if you ever mentioned a backup. I texted back. Told him once. Drawer, bottom right. She didn't reply right away. I just waited. 20 minutes later, he found it. I sat up. The envelope? Yup. Binder, full pages. Sticky note said, "Hi, Carl, if you're reading this, I owe you a burger." That was real. I'd written it on the first page in orange ink, right over the system flowchart. It was a long shot, but I always figured if anyone went looking, it'd be Carl. He didn't speak unless he had to. But he watched everything. Jess kept sending updates. He's reading it, like cover to cover. He's flipping through shelf maps like it's treasure. You should have seen his face when he hit the reorder logic. The binder wasn't just notes. It was the whole damn machine. How the products flowed, why the codes mattered, what each barcode prefix stood for. I'd built it clean, lean, efficient, and Carl could see it. Next update came an hour later. He brought it to Daryl. I laughed out loud. How'd that go? Daryl waved him off, said, "We sunset that system," like he was talking about an expired milk jug. Of course he did. Daryl never read a single technical document unless it had bullet points and a graphic with a rocket ship. He called everything he didn't understand a legacy platform. What he really meant was anything that made him look stupid. Carl didn't argue, Jess added. He just nodded, then walked out of the office with the binder still in his hand. That told me everything I needed to know. Carl wasn't like the rest of them. He didn't need to argue. He wasn't there for claps or slogans or rev-up rituals. He just wanted to fix what was broken, and now he had the blueprint. I imagined him walking down that back hallway, binder under his arm, head down like always, not in defeat, in focus, quiet strength, while Daryl probably turned back to whatever empty Zoom call or Slack message he was faking interest in. Jess followed up with one more message. He looked like he just found the secret code to save the ship. I put my phone down and leaned back in my chair. If Carl was moving, things were about to shift. Not loud, not flashy, but deep and permanent. Carl didn't waste time. Jess texted me less than an hour after he left Daryl's office. He's in the break room reading company policy, I replied. Bet he's on Section 8. She corrected me. Section 8.2. Highlighted it. Took a photo. That clause was buried deep in the operations handbook. Digital systems tagged sensitive couldn't be altered, repurposed, or relaunched without written release from the original creator. And I had flagged the system correctly. Logged every piece under my credentials, tagged the build as sensitive, archived it to spec. Carl had the binder. Now he had the clause. Next update. He's walking into the compliance office. Miss Rain's district compliance officer. Late 40s, sharp bob haircut, eyes like razors. Never smiled, never joked. Kept her own pen on a lanyard so nobody touched it. The only person in that entire district who read the manual cover to cover. Carl dropped the binder on her desk, showed her the clause, walked her through the credentials tag and the deployment logs. Jess said they talked for 20 minutes. Miss Rains pulled up the file history, found the lockout note, found the encryption logs, found my name. And just like that, it was real. The clause still stood. The policy was active. No release, no use. End of story. Jess sent one more text. Carl's heading back to Daryl's office. Binder in hand, I pictured it. Carl walking down the hallway. No emotion on his face. Just that steady pace. Binder under his arm like a briefcase full of evidence. When he walked into Daryl's office, Daryl was mid-Zoom, headset on, talking to someone with CORPSTRATEGY in their username, trying to pitch some fake enthusiasm about next phase logistics or whatever buzzword salad they were spoon-feeding upstairs. Carl didn't wait for him to finish. He walked right in, flipped open the binder, turned to page 12, the policy printout, and tapped it. Section 8.2, he said. You need her sign-off. Daryl blinked, pulled his headset down. What? Carl didn't repeat it. Daryl stared at the page. That's just red tape. Carl didn't move, just looked at him. No anger, no smugness. Then Daryl tried to wave it away. Nobody checks this stuff. We're mid-rollout. The system's already live. Carl closed the binder, set it gently on the desk. Then he said, then enjoy explaining the mess. He turned around and walked out. Didn't raise his voice, didn't slam the door. Just left the binder sitting there. Thick, heavy, undeniable. Jess told me later the rest of the office went quiet after that. Daryl didn't even finish the Zoom call, just stared at the binder like it had teeth. A few hours later, Carl went back to his post. Didn't say a word to anyone. He didn't need to. He just flipped the board and laid the king flat. Carl didn't say a damn thing the rest of that day. Jess said he went right back to restocking aisle 3 like he hadn't just handed Daryl a loaded grenade. But she noticed something different. He started checking his watch. Friday hit, and with it came the monthly fire drill. Management treated it like a mini field trip. Whole team gets herded outside, stand by the dumpster for 10 minutes, pretend it's a bonding moment. Everyone filed out as the alarms blared. Except Carl. Jess texted me. He's still inside. Your old station. Binders out. I stood up from my kitchen table and stared at the message. Binder, my station. During a drill? What's he doing? Her reply came quick. Waiting. Outside, the team was laughing, tossing around stress balls. Daryl was holding a clipboard like he was running some Olympic event, trying to look important while ignoring the crater he was standing in. Back inside, Carl waited until they were all just about to pass the front counter on the way back in. Then he started slow clapping. 1 clap. 2. Real slow. Real steady. People stopped walking, heads turned. He stood right behind my old desk. My mug's still there, the black one with the chipped handle. Binder open, pages fanned out. Diagrams showing the original flow logic. Shelf maps in color. Legal memo printed and paper-clipped right to the front, and right next to it, for everyone to see, a printed copy of Section 8.2. Highlighted, underlined, circled twice. Jess told me the air shifted instantly. Daryl stepped through the doorway, saw Carl, and tried to play it off. Carl, what is this, open mic? Dead silence. Not one laugh, not even a smirk. Carl didn't speak, just kept flipping the pages slowly, letting the silence spread. Then one of the junior techs, Nate, 20 years old, brand new, leaned over and whispered loud enough to be heard, "Wait, wasn't that supposed to be in the system?" That was it. The mood cracked. Everyone looked around. Nobody said anything, but the tension hit like a gust of cold air. Eyes started landing on Daryl, then back on Carl, then down at the memo. Jess said even Natalie stopped mid-step. She looked at the diagrams like they were written in a foreign language, then looked up like someone just told her gravity wasn't real. Carl didn't flinch. He closed the binder, real neat, picked up the memo, and clipped it back to the cover. Then he took one long look around the room, let his eyes pass over every single person Daryl last. Then he walked out. No speech, no smug look, just pure, silent weight. Daryl tried to recover. All right, team, let's get back to the grind. Energy up. Nobody moved right away. Jess told me it was the first time she ever saw Tyler not smile. The drill had ended, but it wasn't a drill anymore. Carl hadn't yelled. He hadn't exposed anything new. He just showed them. The binder, the memo, the fact that every single person in that room had been lied to and dragged through a fake rollout just to protect one man's pride. Later that night, Jess texted me again. People are whispering, saying Daryl lied about the launch. Good, I wrote back. Now let the whispers grow teeth. My phone buzzed at 9:04 a.m. Jess, email just went out. Your lawyer. I sat up straighter. No lead-in, no warning. Just that. I texted back, what's it say? She sent a screenshot. Subject, IP usage inquiry from corporate.legal@treadwellauto.com. 2. regional.daryl@treadwellauto.com. Message, this message serves as formal notification regarding potential unauthorized deployment of a system flagged as sensitive under Internal Policy Section 8.2. No written release has been located from the original creator. If the system was accessed, used, or modified, this may be a breach of internal compliance standards. Please review attached documentation and be prepared for follow-up. I read it twice. No threats, no lawsuits, just pressure. The kind that doesn't go away. 5 hours later, Jess followed up. Legal met with Daryl. CTO showed up. Compliance, too. HR came in with laptops. That's when I knew they weren't brushing it off. If HR rolled in early, it wasn't about feelings, it was about protection. That afternoon, the company sent out one of those fake casual policy emails to the entire region. The subject line read, "A friendly reminder, internal tools and IP." The body was worse. Please ensure all operational tools and proprietary systems are used in accordance with employee guidelines. Respecting creator rights, change authorization, and sensitive tags is critical for legal compliance. For clarification, refer to Section 8.0 to 8.4. Jess texted again. Translation, they're freaking out. She was right. The memo didn't mention me by name, but it didn't have to. Everyone who'd worked that floor knew who built that system. The system Daryl scrapped. The one Carl unearthed. The one that was still mine. By Friday, Daryl's team was flagged for a full audit. Every line of code they touched, every stock number changed, every sticker slapped over a barcode. All of it got put under a microscope. Carl wasn't mentioned once. Neither was Natalie. They didn't even call her in. They weren't interested in enthusiasm anymore. They were looking for responsibility. Jess said Daryl stopped talking during team huddles, stopped doing his rev up chant, stopped calling people rock stars. He just stood there with a clipboard he never looked at. Then the whispers started. Techs wondering if the memo was about him. Floor staff asking if the audit had anything to do with the system failing. Someone said they saw a legal rep walking out with a flash drive. Jess's last text that day? They're digging. And they were. I could feel it. Not in a gloating way. Not some big victory rush. Just quiet satisfaction. They ignored the rules, shrugged off the warnings, lied to their own team. And now? Now the rules were walking back through the front door, wearing suits and carrying clipboards. No yelling, no drama, just facts, just policy, just time catching up. Jess didn't text this time. She called. They pulled Daryl into a boardroom presentation this morning. Whole regional team. Legal's there. So's the CTO. It's happening. I put her on speaker and leaned back in my chair. From what she told me, it started like every other corporate dog and pony show. Daryl in a fresh button-up, voice just a little too cheerful. Slides glowing behind him, full of empty terms. Legacy friction. Staff transition. Data maturity misalignment. He spun hard. Claimed delays in the inventory system were part of a larger optimization push. Said everything was evolving. Said they were leaning into resilience. Jess said the board looked bored. Until slide 11. That one showed system downtime. No spin covered that. Carl stood up, quiet, no intro. Walked to the table, binder under his arm, printed memo in his hand. Didn't even ask permission. Just slid the memo across the polished table and let it sit. The room froze. Jess whispered into the phone. It was dead silent. A board member, older guy, glasses, no expression, picked it up, read the top line, paused, then looked straight at Daryl. Did you authorize deployment without her written release? Daryl blinked. It was implied. She left the process. It was verbal. Carl didn't say a word, just stood still, binder still in one hand like a closing argument. Legal cleared her throat. Clause 8.2 is binding. Verbal consent isn't valid, especially not post-departure. Another board member leaned forward. So you deployed a sensitive tool without the proper release. Then built over it with undocumented changes. Daryl's neck flushed red. I was told, well, I assumed, it was open access. By who? He hesitated, then made the mistake of glancing at Carl. That's when he knew it was over. Jess said no one defended him. No one jumped in. Nobody said a word. HR sat still. Legal had their arms folded. Even the CTO just stared at the screen like she'd rather be anywhere else. Then Carl spoke. One line. Calm. Even. Lazy hands, huh? He didn't stay for the response. He set the binder down beside the memo, turned, and walked out of the boardroom without another word. Jess said the door didn't even click behind him. Just a soft close that felt louder than any argument could have been. Back in the hallway, nobody looked at him. Everyone knew what had just happened. Daryl had tried to bury the system, rebrand it, sell it as his own fix, all while ignoring the one rule written right into the company's DNA. Don't screw with what you didn't build. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, sipping black coffee out of that same chipped mug. Inbox pinged. Subject, system notice. Deployment paused. I opened it. Effective immediately, all use of the Treadwell inventory tracking platform has been paused pending compliance resolution and internal audit results. Further updates to follow, no signatures. Just a plain system message. But I saw what it meant. They pulled the plug. No more stickers. No more half-baked rollouts. Just silence and damage control. Jess texted not long after. Daryl's not here. No explanation. HR's in his office. I didn't even reply. Just kept sipping my coffee. 15 minutes later, they're calling it a restructuring. Of course they were. That's what companies do when they don't want to say fired. Another text. Natalie's in customer service now. Phones and refunds. No access to ops. That one made me pause. Not because I was mad. I wasn't. She never should have been thrown in that deep to begin with. That part was on Daryl. Carl, though? Jess's last text of the morning said it all. Carl's in charge of ops now. He's rebuilding your system. Under your name, I opened the documentation summary in the attachment they sent with the email. Page 1, top right corner. System design credit. My full name. No fanfare. No announcement. Just printed acknowledgement in black and white. And that was enough. I didn't torch the place, didn't slam doors or make threats. I just followed the policy they all ignored. They called me steady, said I had no sparkle. Maybe that was true. But steady built the system they couldn't fake. Lazy hands? They just handed me proof that doing things right was louder than pretending you had it all together.